Okay, so this is my Perry Mason Season 2, Episode 8 review, aka the season and series finale, because yes, the show was canceled. One of the benefits of waiting this long to do this review is I discovered that. But anyway, so it starts off with a very bizarre beauty treatment that Camilla gets, which includes being stung by a bee under the bags under her eyes, which, with someone who suffers from all sorts of allergies and has absolutely no clue whether she's allergic to bees, that really hurt. That just, I was cringing towards that. Every time she flinched, I flinched. I do not know if I'm allergic to bees and don't want to find out. I'm perfectly fine not knowing. But anyway, so the case starts off with Della, Perry, and Perry discussing the case, and Perry telling her what Lydell told her about Camilla. And Della just does not want to believe that it's Camilla because she's gotten close to Camilla. She likes her, and she just refuses to believe, despite what Perry's telling her, that Camilla is the bad guy. And on one hand, I do understand, Della, when you really feel like you connect with a person, that you finally find someone who understands you and your struggles, it sucks to find out that they're evil. You don't want to hear that. So I do get it that she keeps trying to come up with excuses as to why Perry is not seeing what he sees. Despite, like he told Della, Lydell had a gun to me. It was not the other way around. Implying he understands that torture, not a good way to extract a confession. So, as they're talking, Paul comes in and he introduces his wife, Clara. And he hands him an envelope where he has the name of her lawyer, Fipsy. And Perry's like, "Do you believe me now?" And mentioned about Constance ODing. And she's like, wait, Camilla's pianist? So I don't know if she was shocked that they were married or that she keeps ODing on heroin. Maybe it's both. So Perry wants to take this information to Berger. And Della is hesitant because he's being blackmailed. And she doesn't want to say what the blackmail is because, again, you never know who's going to be a raging homophobe. Especially in the 30s where that was absolutely acceptable because being gay, again, was illegal. And yeah, this is the storyline that really, well, this whole episode ticked me off, but this storyline really ticked me off. They just gave lip service to the fact that you could be ruined if your being a homosexual got out into the public. And I get that, but show me. Okay, Camilla blackmails Hamilton with racy pictures. And Della finally, she wants to say it, and she's like, no, you'll judge him. And Perry figures it out, that there are compromising pictures of him with a man. Now, Paul and Clara are here and listening to it. And Della, asked everybody that this doesn't leave this room. Nobody else can know. And, I've heard stories of how the black community today views homosexuality. There's still plenty of homophobia in that community, from what I'm told. And so you would think in the 30s it would be even worse. So the fact that she said this, and Perry said this, and Paul and Clara were just standing there like, okay, so, they, no flinching, no looks of disgust, nothing. And that's a storyline that has bugged me this entire season. Absolutely nobody in Perry's inner circle of the of the main cast has a problem with homosexuality. Now, it would be great if it was a group of friends, if this was about a group of friends, because friends tend um people tend to become friends with people that think like them. So the chances of you actually having a group of friends and there are no bigots amongst them improves. But this is not the case here. They are brought together not by friendship, but by employment. So the fact that absolutely nobody that has witnessed either Della or Hamilton being homosexuals, and absolutely not having a shit fit, is just it just doesn't make any sense. You would think that they would at least have a storyline where one of them has to accept the fact, be bigoted at first, but over time accept the fact that this is a thing. But no, or even, just a one offer. At this point, I would have accepted that. But they're not even doing that. They're just giving lip service to the fact that it was dangerous during that time to be homosexual, which it was. But they're not showing. Except for the blackmail. They really aren't showing. I would have liked to have seen some of the main cast flip their lids at finding this out. Whether it be because of that, finding out that Della is homosexual or that Hamilton is, but somebody. Now, I knew that Perry wouldn't because he mentioned in the first season that he was queer once. So, obviously, he's not going to give a shit. So, Perry's going to be cool with it. The fact that he's cool with Della doesn't necessarily mean he would have been cool with Hamilton, but it improves chances. So, yeah, that just drove me absolutely nuts. That absolutely nobody in this orbit had a problem with it. I mean, I don't know, make the assistant DA find out and see if he would lose his shit, considering how racist he was. Chances are he would have a problem with his boss being gay. But that's not the way they went. Every main character did not have a problem. They were like, yeah, okay. Alright, that was a thing that just happened, that we just found out. So, yeah, that drove me nuts. And they had a historical consultant. So they went so far as to imply that being homosexual was dangerous during this time, but they didn't go the extra mile to show the implications. And I don't just mean the blackmail, because that was taken care of in a nice little bow. I still feel bad for Hamilton, but ugh. So anyway, so their next job is to find out, is to get these pictures and get the negatives from Camilla And so while Perry is becoming a sacrificial lamb and telling the judge, they go meet with the judge. Actually, no. He goes to the shoeshine station with the judges, and they are talking about the case, and the judge obviously does not want to talk about it. Perry just asks him, so does the good earth have a good ending? Spoiler alert, it doesn't. That's the one thing I do remember from that book. I remember very little, but I do remember that. But anyway. So Perry says, if you okay, fine, let the gun be taken into evidence, but these guys need competent counsel. So let me finish the case, and then you can do whatever you want to me. So they meet up in their chambers, and it's agreed that Perry is going to have to spend 4 months in prison. Della does not like that punishment. She thinks it's too harsh, and Perry's like, it is what it is. And, he's perfectly willing to accept that. And, of course, the asshole, Milligan, mocks the fact that Della is outgoing and is willing to speak up, and is like, so is she taking over your practice? And Perry had the best line, does that scare you? So Perry does not suffer fools gladly, and obviously he suffers bigots even worse. So, and Hamilton is just like, still, whenever there's something about this case, he always looks like he just wishes he could just sink through the floor and just disappear. And of course, because the assistant DA does not know about the blackmail and does not understand what's happening, he's just going on and on, droning on and on and on, like this is some sort of, that the goal is not justice, the goal is winning. Now, the Hamilton burger, I remember, cared about justice. And we're going to get into why I wanted to strangle him. But anyway. So, Hamilton and the assistant meet up, and he asked Milligan, so, how did you find the gun? Oh, I had someone break into Perry's office. Now, last episode, he specifically told Pete he didn't want to know how he did it. And we were never shown that Pete told him that that's what he did. So how the hell does he know this? Is this something that happened off screen? That kind of, that's not consistent. Either he didn't want to know, or he did. So, Ham looks like he's about to have an aneurysm. Because on the one hand, he's glad that he's going to be winning the case and, protecting that society will get the result they want. However, he did it illegally. So he's like, I need to protect the DA's office. What are you doing? And the guy is incredulous, like, but we have to do what it takes to win, right? So yeah, he's slowly digging his own grave, which I'm perfectly here for. So they give their closing arguments, and jumping ahead. So while that's happening, Perry, Paul, and Della first Paul visits Ozzie Jackson, which I'm so glad he's still alive. Yes, the trope is no body, no dead, but considering the type of show this is, I didn't think that trope would work with this show, because we are talking 1930s and he deals with a gangster, meaning Perkins. So not necessarily that trope works. But anyway, so Paul talks to Ozzy and he gives him money to tell him what's happening. So then we see Paul, Della, and Perry at Fipsy's house. And he's still freaking out about Constance because she OD'd again. And my question is, if you care so much about Constance, how is it that she's getting this heroin? I mean, seriously, can't you find a way to stop her? Like, I don't know, don't give her the funds so she can go buy stuff? I mean, that's harsh. But it's obvious she can't be trusted. So you've got to do something instead of constantly letting this happen. I mean, he obviously cares about her, but he's obviously also at wit's end as to what to do. Now, this is the 30s, so God knows if I don't know how they were taught how to deal with drug addicts, except for the fact that it's a personal failing. I don't know if there was any other treatments or any other talked about interventions to prevent this from happening. But yeah, that was just... So they talk with Fipsy, and they mention that they have the evidence against him. And Fipsy just rubs his eyes. Is like, I didn't murder anybody. And I'm just like, nobody is accusing you of murdering someone, which makes me wonder if he wasn't the one who actually pulled the trigger, because that is not what you say when confronted with someone who says, we talked with Ozzy. That was never on the table. I'm just, So yeah, it makes you wonder if he wasn't the one who killed somebody, because I highly doubt Ozzy knew who he hired. So that was just bizarre. If I was Perry, I would say, nobody even accused you of that. Why are you adamant about this? Maybe you did. Maybe that's why you're adamant. But anyway, so they agree that that if he helps them, that they're not going to say anything. That just get us the negatives. That's all we want, is we want the negatives. Which is too bad, because I really was hoping that the next court scene would be of them not just doing closing arguments, but of Perry calling Fipsy to the stand. So, but anyway, so while they're doing closing arguments and the assistant DA is going on this racist screed, and I was just willing anybody, and I'm sure Hamilton was the same way, he was just willing him to shut up. I was willing him to get laryngitis, to get shot. I was not wanting good things to happen to this man, because it was just horrible. Assuming that they're guests because they're of Mexican descent. I mean, dude, they were born in this country, you absolute piece of shit. But he is so racist that he cannot see that anyone other than white people could possibly be born American citizens. They must have come from another country. And even if they did, what the hell? that's not an excuse to treat them like shit. So yeah, I was really hoping for bad things, worse things than what Hamilton ended up doing to him, but anyway. So he goes on a racist screed. Perry just calmly explains that everyone has preconceived notions, a beautiful attempt to basically call out the assistant DA for his absolute disgusting bigotry without hitting him over the head with it. And that guy is so dumb, it probably went way over his head. So, despite them dragging Brooks McCutcheon's reputation through the mud, this asshole keeps going on about how he's a pillar of the community. Why? Because he's rich? And, the same old, same old. And like I said, I wanted to step in his face. I wanted to hurt him so bad. Because, ugh. So kudos to the actor for his performance, because he definitely made me want to hate Milligan. Milligan is a scumbag. And, so they had the closing arguments, but then they still called 2 witnesses after the fact. Wait, what? And Perry, I wish he had called Fipsy. I was constantly hoping to the last moment that something good would come of this. So they had their closing arguments, and Hamilton meets with Perry and Della afterwards, and they give him all of his blackmail material, all the negatives. Now, there were a lot of pictures on that, but they only mentioned that they followed Perry, obviously Hamilton, and Della. And so she knows that Della is with Anita. And I'm assuming, I would love to believe that the reason they didn't follow Paul was because he's just that good of a detective and they probably wouldn't have gotten away with it. But we all know what the real reason is. So Hamilton turns to Perry and says, well, you know my secret. And goes, I don't care. And Hamilton's like, I do. And I get it. The fewer people who know because of this environment, the fewer people that know, the better the chance that the wrong people will find out. The better chance they won't find out. And so I get what Hamilton's saying here, but also, I mean, come on, give Perry a break. Not everybody is going to be homophobic. I mean, Perry doesn't care, like what you mentioned in the first season. He was with a guy once. It's perfectly fine. He's not going to judge. This is where I wanted to kill Hamilton. They tell him that they can, open a bigger investigation into Lydell and Camilla, and that they could take them down, and that the kids can get free. And Hamilton insists that one of them has to plead guilty and get 30 years without the possibility of parole. And I'm just like, why? I mean, yes, the community demands someone be held accountable. I get that. But someone will be in Lydell and Camilla, because they're going to be investigated, maybe not by the locals, but by the feds. So someone is going to pay. Why does it have to be one of the boys? And Perry's okay with this. Even though he negotiates, he's like, okay, fine. And I'm just screaming. I understand that the writers wanted to show how people who are minorities get railroaded by the system. But that's when everybody is racist. Perry isn't racist, and we never heard anything coming out of Hamilton's mouth that screams racism. Actually, it bugged the hell out of him listening to the racist screed that his assistant DA was screaming. So, and this would have been justice because they would have taken down really big names, and I just don't see why that wouldn't have been enough. But like he said, every day people have been hearing about how bad the Gallardos are. But so what? That just means that they believe anything that they're told. That they're listening to the wrong people rather than actually wanting the truth. They just want to believe their own racism. And like Perry called them out, everyone has these preconceived notions as to what type of person you are based on all these factors. So he basically called them out on their racism. In a very nice way, but he called them all out. Called them out on their racism, called them out on the fact that they probably still worship people like Brooks and Lydell simply because they happen to be rich. Not once was it brought up on the show, in the courtroom, what Brooks McCutcheon did to the Gallardos. That was only said in private. That never came out. When Mateo gave his speech as to doing it for family, never once, and we saw the flashback, never once was it pointed out, oh, by the way, we used to have a very nice home, and we also used to have a younger sister, but Brooks McCutcheon sent the police to heavy-handedly get rid of all of us. Our sister hid, and she ended up burning to death. That would have been great information. That would have been great information, and it might have moved them even more. Or maybe they just assumed that, oh, these guys are racist fucks, so the fact that a little brown girl got burned to death probably won't move them. But it is just so annoying that they didn't even try. So Mateo decides he's going to fall on the sword, and instead Raphael wants to, but Mateo knows that Raphael got accepted to art school, so he wants to give him a chance at a good life. Okay, fine. So they destroy Mateo's sacrifice by showing the flashback of Mateo killing Brooks. Now, again, I still do not believe that either Gallardo brother did it. I think the police railroaded them both. And for some reason, Hamilton is letting this happen, which is so annoying. I realize they want to make these characters complicated, but within reason here, guys. Let's not complicate them for complication's sake here. So he falls on the sword. Like I said, that whole flashback destroyed his sacrifice. He sacrificed himself so Raphael could have a good life. That he could go to art school, that he could, have a good life. And that's what was being this is what it was leading up to Mateo's sacrifice. And they ruin it by showing a supposed flashback of him shooting him. No. And there are people, I've seen reviews, even Matthew Reese, were like, oh yeah, Mateo's the killer. And I wanted to scream because that is not what happened. And, ugh, I mean, like I said, that destroyed his sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice if it's true. So, I mean, it's still a bit of a sacrifice, but come on. We had this idea that these two innocent boys, one was going to take the fall so the other one could get out of jail. Now we have it that he isn't the innocent guy that we thought he was. And it just pissed me off so much. So those two things really, really pissed me off. It was fun to see Hamilton pretty much fire the assistant DA. He told Milligan that, first off, stay away from, you're off the Gallardo's case, which, dude, the case is over. Why are you taking him off now? And he explains that he made a plea deal. And Tommy is pissed because he's like, but I won us the case, which isn't wrong. He did win them the case. But he's like, I have to protect the DA's office. And he goes, stay away from my cases. So we went from, you're off the Gallardo case to you're fired. Because what else is he going to do if he can't try any case at the DA's office? That's basically firing him. And, so that's one good thing that came out of it. But after the court adjourned, there was a gaggle of journalists, plus Anita, and one of the questions was, of course, a sexist one. You know, did you worry about being taken seriously in the courtroom? Which, granted, I loved the comeback. That, are you worried about being taken seriously as a reporter? However, I don't think that would have happened in the 30s. Maybe it would have, but it just strikes me as, um, well, yeah, of course she wouldn't be taken seriously because of how women were seen in the 30s. But anyway, so then the question came up about her being seen around town with a lucky guy. And she's like, wait, what? You know, that you're being seen around town with someone. And she, even though she said, I don't know what you're referring to, you could see it in her eyes that she's like, oh crap. But she didn't want to let it be known that she is jumping to conclusions. And it turned out it was Ham. And she's like, oh yeah, we're old friends. And so that ended up leading to, so then Perry says goodbye to Paul because Paul got an offer from Mr. Perkins. Perkins decided that he wants to beautify the neighborhood. You know, put in a park, put in a pool, but he can't get the zoning permits because the crackers on the council won't give it to him, because of course they won't. It's already been established this era is racist as fuck. So he wants Paul to basically blackmail them. And, just dig up dirt on them and get them to cooperate. Which, on the one hand, I don't like that Paul's doing that, but on the other hand, well, if that's the only way he's gonna get stuff done, because otherwise they would be fine if the community just drowned in their own filth. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do. So, Paul says goodbye to Perry. And in many ways, this felt like a very good series ending episode, which was good considering it was a series ending episode. So Perry gets ready to go to jail. So first he hangs out with Della, and Della's being so sweet. It's like, you know, we can go anywhere. I'll my treat. And he's like, no, I'm fine here. So they're drinking from a shot glass. They're not shooting from a shot glass. They're drinking from a shot glass. What the fuck? Anyway, so they talk about how all the illegal shit they did, and that, that they're lucky that things turned out the way they did. They also made fun of Sonny, that Sonny is paying them, and Perry mocked Sonny by singing it to the jingle, to Sonny's jingle. And I honestly thought we would see Sonny again, that he would have something to do with this case because he also worked with Brooks McGudgeon. But no, that was a totally separate thing. It was just their way of getting money out of him. So they're hanging out. They're talking about what true justice means. That justice is not an illusion, but the system is. And so you can tell that Perry does not like what deal he struck for Mateo. And that's bothering him. And it bothers me too, because again, they could have taken down Camilla and Lydell. But no, they couldn't, because I guess Hamilton was still afraid that she might still have something on him, so he didn't want to go after her, even though Perry and Della have proven that they will not let anything happen to him, that they will fight for him. So I get it, he's super afraid now, but at the same time, look at who's in your corner. Perry freaking Mason is in your corner. But anyway, I mean, he obviously has admiration for Perry, even if they're on opposite sides. So, yeah, that was frustrating. So, the next day, Perry says his goodbyes and he goes to visit Ginny at the stables. And Ginny is looking at him like she wants to kill him, which based on how they last saw each other, can't say I blame her. So Perry basically, stumbles around but asked her for a second chance, and that he's going to jail because of the gun. But she smooths it over like, oh, autumn is such a nice time of the year. Yosemite's supposed to be really nice. And it's like, really? That's all it took for you to forgive him? He accused you of fucking his case over. Granted, it was partially his fault for being a dum-dum and hiding the gun. And granted, technically it was Della who did the hiding, but he didn't stop her. So he walks away, and Pete takes him to the courthouse. And he's like, well, it's your own fault, that you landed here. And he's like, nah, it's yours. Because, well, Pete did find the gun. He did look for it. He could have kept his fucking mouth shut. And he's like, I peed in Milligan's cognac bottle. And I was just dying. Like, that's such a Pete thing to do. He would totally do something like that. But, yeah, that was just How these two still get along, I do not know. And he's like, "We'll see you around, fucko," and leaves. So he goes into lockup, and and while you're seeing that, you're seeing a montage of what's happening with everybody else. You see Paul taking a call from Perkins for a job. You see Della with Anita and Hamilton at a restaurant, and a picture being taken of the happy couple, which all I can think is this has got to be a engagement party. I don't know if Hamilton read in the paper what Della said, that the question was even asked. And oh boy, I'm gonna sneeze. And or how that worked out, that they decided that they were going to get married, because they could just remain engaged forever. We'll see. Well, actually, we won't see, because the show is canceled. Hopefully it can be picked up in another service, whether probably not another network, but maybe a streaming service somewhere. But anyway, so like Hulu or something, because it's mostly owned by Disney, so that might work. But anyway, so we see the girls getting ready to go visit Mateo in prison. And you see Raphael painting. And he said, I'll tell my brother I'll see him tomorrow after school. And let's see if I missed it. Oh, yes. And about the engagement, I was kind of hoping that either the man in the blackmail photos would be there, or somebody that wouldn't just be Della with her love, that it would be Hamilton with someone himself. I mean, granted, they're the happy couple, but still, it would have been nice if Hamilton could have his happy ending. Della has Anita. Why can't Ham have someone? Maybe that would, make it easier for him. Let's see if I'm missing anything from this episode, because I ranted for a while. So, did I miss anything? Oh, yes, the big one. Della goes to visit Camilla while she's swimming laps, which harkens back to their first meeting. And so she gets out of the pool, and Della calls her out on her behavior and says, "Oh, I was just protecting those poor innocent women that Brooks abused." Come on. Della knows it. I know it. Everybody knows that that is not the reason she offed Brooks. She offed him because he was a threat to their operations. That was Lydell's mistake, was telling Camilla that this was happening. Lydell should have never ever said anything, because because how else would Camilla know that Brooks was willing to testify against him? I mean, nobody had to tell her that he had a subpoena. Or maybe she was following them too. Like I said, there were photographs galore. So it's possible she was having them tailed too. Or at least Brooks. So the feds, as they're talking, the feds come in. And then you see a telegraph to Lydell, who's in Japan, telling him to stay in Japan. The feds want to talk to you. And I honestly thought when he was given tea, I was expecting it to be poisoned or something. Or to be given tea and then somebody comes from either from the government or somebody were to come in and either off him or take him back to the US or something. I was expecting something. And, oh yes, we did see a bit of Holcomb for a split second where he's in his empty casino boat and he makes a Molotov cocktail and sets it on fire. Which is a good callback to the first episode where they burned down one of the casino boats that were competing against this one, the Morocco. So that left us open as to whether we would see Holcomb again. He did mention to his wife that they wanted to get out of town, so that might have been the last we would have seen of Holcomb anyway. I'm wondering if they would have done a case next season, if there was a next season, where Perry is working on a case and Paul either stumbles on something or they just somehow meet up somehow and Paul ends up working for Perry again. I don't know how they were planning on dealing with next season. Whether Perkins would have been more of a main character. We'll never know. This is all speculation because, again, it was canceled. So, I believe I've covered everything from this episode. And I will see you guys in the next video.